The Grand Archive of the Velthari Confederacy stood at the center of the galaxy. It was a place older than most civilizations. Its halls stretched for thousands of miles, filled with the knowledge of 10,000 years. Every species that had ever touched the stars had left their mark here. Every war, every treaty, every secret, all of it lived within these walls. Young Ambassador Krixtal walked through the ancient corridors with nervous steps. His blue skin shimmered under the pale lights. His 4 arms hung at his sides, and his 2 hearts beat faster than they should. Today was the most important day of his life. The Morvani High Council had chosen him for a great honor. He would be the first of his kind to visit Earth. He would meet the humans. Krixtal had studied humans for years. He knew their history, their languages, their strange customs. They were a young species, barely 1,000 years into space travel. They seemed unremarkable in many ways. They had no natural weapons, no armored skin, no telepathic powers. They were soft creatures, made of water and carbon. Yet something about his assignment troubled him. When he told other diplomats about his mission, they looked at him with pity. Some even looked afraid. He did not understand why. His mentor, High Arbiter Thesson, waited for him at the end of a long hallway. Thesson was old, even by Morvani standards. His scales had turned gray with age, and his 4 eyes carried the weight of centuries. He had served the Confederacy for 300 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had witnessed things that would break lesser minds. "You came," Thesson said. His voice was low and serious. "Of course," Krixtal replied. "My ship leaves tomorrow. I wanted to say goodbye." Thesson did not smile. He reached into his robes and pulled out a small crystal. It glowed with a faint red light. Krixtal recognized it immediately. It was a data crystal, but the color meant something. Red crystals held classified information. The kind of information that could end careers. The kind that could start wars. "Before you go to Earth," Thesson said, "you must see this." Krixtal hesitated. "What is it?" "The truth about humanity." They walked deeper into the archive, past sections that Krixtal had never seen before. The lights grew dimmer. The air grew colder. Finally, they reached a door marked with symbols in a language so old that even the translation systems could not read it. Thesson pressed his hand against the lock, and the door slid open. Inside was a small room with a single chair and a viewing screen. Thesson placed the crystal into the machine and stepped back. "This file contains the testimonies of 12 species," Thesson explained. "They are the only survivors of civilizations that once attacked humanity. Some of these species no longer exist. Others have been reduced to a handful of refugees hiding at the edge of the galaxy. All of them have one thing in common. They all made the same mistake." Krixtal felt a chill run through his body. What mistake? They thought humans were weak. The screen flickered to life. The first image showed a star map with dozens of markers. Each marker represented a species that had gone to war with Earth. As Krixtal watched, the markers began to disappear one by one. Within seconds, almost all of them were gone. "In 10,000 years of galactic history," Thesson continued, "not a single species that declared war on Earth has survived as a spacefaring power. Many no longer exist at all. Their worlds are empty. Their people are dust. Their names are remembered only in these files." Krixtal stared at the screen. His mind struggled to accept what he was seeing. That cannot be true. Humans are so young. They are so primitive compared to us. Thesson let out a long breath. That is what every species believed. That is what the Drethax believed when they had 60 star systems and the largest fleet in the quadrant. That is what the Silicoid Communion believed when they tried to reshape Earth's atmosphere. That is what the Ythrani Collective believed when they used their mind weapons against human cities. And what happened to them? The Drethax Empire is gone. The Silicoid homeworld is now an asteroid field. The Ythrani have not been seen in 2 centuries. Thassan placed his hand on Krixtal's shoulder. The Confederacy's most closely guarded secret is simple, young one. Humanity has never been invited to join the Galactic Council. Do you know why? Krixtal shook his head. It is not because they are primitive. It is not because they are unworthy. Thassan's eyes grew dark. It is because every elder species in the galaxy is afraid of them. We have seen what they become when they are angry. We have seen what happens to those who harm them. And we have decided that it is better to leave them alone than to risk becoming their enemy. The screen began to play the first testimony. It was the recorded words of Admiral Vorinth, last military commander of the mighty Drethax Empire. His voice was broken. His words were filled with terror. Krixtal sat down in the chair and began to watch. He did not move for hours. By the time he finished, he was not the same person he had been before. He understood now why the other diplomats had looked at him with pity. He was going to Earth. He was going to meet the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And he was terrified. The recording was old. The image flickered and jumped. But the voice of Admiral Vorinth was clear. It carried the weight of defeat. It carried the sound of a broken warrior. I am recording this so that others may learn from our failure, Vorinth began. His face filled the screen. He was Drethax, a reptilian creature with black scales and yellow eyes. Once, those eyes had held the confidence of a conqueror. Now they held only fear and regret. I am the last admiral of the Drethax Empire. When this recording ends, I will be the last Drethax alive. Our species is finished. Our worlds are burning. And it is all because we did not understand what humans truly are. Krixtal leaned forward in his chair. His heart pounded as the story unfolded. 300 years ago, the Drethax were the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had conquered 60 star systems. Their fleet was unstoppable. Their warriors were legendary. They had crushed a dozen civilizations beneath their claws. They believed they were the ultimate predators. Then their scouts found Earth. We watched them for years, Vorinth explained. We studied their broadcasts. We analyzed their weapons. We saw a species divided into hundreds of nations. They fought wars against each other constantly. They could barely reach their own moon. They had no shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light travel. They were children playing with toys. The Drethax High Command made their decision. Earth would be an easy conquest. The humans would make excellent slaves. Their planet was rich with resources. It would be a simple matter. 12 hive ships descended on Earth without warning. Each ship carried 1 million warriors. They struck 3 major cities at the same time. The attack lasted less than an hour. When it was over, 18 million humans were dead. We expected them to surrender, Vorinth said. His voice grew quieter. Every species we had conquered before had surrendered after such losses. They would beg for mercy. They would offer tribute. They would accept their place beneath us. That is how the galaxy works. But the humans did not surrender. Krixtal watched the next part of the recording with growing horror. Within 72 hours of the attack, something impossible happened. Every nation on Earth, nations that had been enemies for generations, stopped fighting each other. Ancient hatreds were set aside. Old wars were forgotten. The entire species united under a single purpose. They were going to fight back. We did not understand what we were seeing, Vorinth admitted. Factories that made toys began making weapons. Scientists who had competed against each other began sharing their secrets. Ordinary citizens who had never held a gun volunteered by the millions. It was like watching a single organism wake up. One moment they were divided. The next moment they were one. The humans studied the crashed remains of Drethax fighters. They took apart the technology piece by piece. They learned how it worked. They improved it. Within 6 months, they had built their own version. Within a year, they had made it better than the original. It should have taken them decades, Vorinth said. It takes most species 100 years to reverse engineer alien technology. The humans did it in months. They did not sleep. They did not rest. Every moment of every day, they worked toward a single goal: revenge. The first human counterattack came without warning. A fleet of ships crewed by Drethax standards, but deadly, appeared in the skies above a Drethax colony world. They did not ask for surrender. They did not try to negotiate. They simply attacked. The colony fell in 2 days. We sent our main fleet to stop them. Vorinth continued. We outnumbered them 10-1. We had better ships, better weapons, more experience. We should have crushed them easily. The battle lasted 3 weeks. When it was over, the Drethax fleet was scattered. The humans had lost many ships, but they did not stop. They built more. They always built more. They pursued us across the galaxy. No matter how far we ran, they followed. No matter how many of them we killed, more came. They found our homeworld. They surrounded it with their ships, and then they spoke to us for the first time. The human commander delivered a simple message: surrender unconditionally, or face extinction. The Drethax High Command refused. They were warriors. They would rather die than kneel. They gave us exactly what we asked for, Vorinth said. His voice broke. They burned our cities from orbit. They destroyed our ships. They hunted down every colony, every outpost, every hiding place. It took them 50 years, but they did not stop until we were gone. Not defeated, not conquered. Gone. The recording showed images of burning worlds, empty cities, ships floating dead in space, the mighty Drethax Empire, reduced to ash and memory. I have one message for any species watching this, Vorinth said. His eyes stared directly into the camera. Do not attack the humans. Not because they are strong. There are stronger species in the galaxy. Not because they are smart. There are smarter species. Attack them because of how they think. He paused. When he spoke again, his words were barely a whisper. Other species fight to win. Humans fight to destroy. Other species accept defeat when the cost grows too high. Humans do not know how to stop. Their anger does not fade with time. It grows. It passes from parent to child. It becomes their purpose, their religion, their reason to exist. They will chase you across the universe. They will sacrifice everything they have. They will burn themselves to ash if it means burning you first. The recording ended. The screen went dark. Crixtal sat in silence for a long time. His hands were shaking. He understood now why the galaxy feared humanity. They were not the strongest. They were not the smartest. They were the most relentless. And that made them the most dangerous species alive. Crixtal continued through the files. Each testimony was worse than the one before. Each story ended the same way. Destruction. Extinction. Silence. The second recording came from Elder Crystalline, last speaker of the Silicoid Communion. The Silicoids were not creatures of flesh and blood. They were living stone, beings of pure mineral that had evolved on a world of extreme heat and pressure. They did not understand biological life. They saw it as weak, temporary, unimportant. When the Silicoids found Earth, they did not want to conquer it. They wanted to change it. They planned to terraform the planet, to remake it in their image. They would fill the atmosphere with toxic gases. They would raise the temperature until the oceans boiled away. The soft creatures living on the surface would simply die. It would be like removing insects from a garden. They began their work without warning. Giant machines descended from the sky and started pumping poison into the air. Within weeks, millions of humans were dying. The skies turned brown. The crops withered. The water became unsafe to drink. The Silicoids expected the humans to flee or die. They did neither. They went underground, Elder Crystalline recorded. His voice was like grinding stones. They built shelters beneath the surface. They created machines to clean their air and water. They grew food in the darkness. And they waited. 40 years passed. 40 years of living in caves and tunnels. 40 years of breathing recycled air and eating fungus grown in artificial light. Children were born who had never seen the sun. Entire generations grew up knowing only darkness and hatred. The humans taught their children about the silicoids. They made them memorize the names of everyone who had died. They told stories about the world that had been stolen from them. The anger did not fade over those 40 years. It grew stronger. It became the only thing that mattered. We thought they had accepted their fate. Elder Crystalline said. We thought they would eventually die out. We were wrong. In the darkness, the humans had been building. They had studied the silicoid technology. They had learned how mineral-based life forms worked, and they had created weapons specifically designed to destroy them. The first attack came without warning. Human ships rose from beneath the poisoned surface of Earth and struck the silicoid machines. Then they kept going. They chased the silicoids back to their homeworld. They had developed bombs that could shatter entire planets, weapons that turned solid rock into dust. They broke our world, Elder Crystalline whispered. They cracked it like an egg and scattered the pieces across the void. Our people, our history, our future, all of it became an asteroid field, drifting in empty space. The recording ended. Crixatal moved to the next file. This one came from Mindsinger Weithra, one of the few survivors of the Yithrani collective. The Yithrani were masters of thought. They could reach into the minds of other beings and control their emotions. They had conquered dozens of species without firing a single weapon. They simply made their enemies too sad to fight. When the Yithrani found Earth, they believed humans would be easy targets. Human minds were simple compared to other species. Their emotions were strong and easy to manipulate. The Yithrani began broadcasting despair frequencies toward Earth's major cities. The signals caused depression, hopelessness, and suicidal thoughts. Millions of humans fell into darkness. We expected them to give up, Mindsinger, Yithra recorded. Her voice carried a strange echo, as if it came from far away. Other species had surrendered within months of our attacks. They lost the will to resist. They welcomed us as saviors from their own sadness, but human minds worked differently. The despair did not make them weak. It made them angry. The sadness twisted into rage. The hopelessness became a burning desire for revenge. They traced our signals back to their source. They found our broadcasting stations hidden in the asteroid belt, and then they came for us. The humans built ships designed for one-way trips. The pilots knew they would not return. They called themselves Payback. They flew directly into the Yithrani stations and exploded. It was suicide, but the humans did not care. More volunteers came forward than there were ships to carry them. They were willing to die, Weithra said, her voice filled with confusion. Not for victory, not for survival, simply to hurt us. We had never seen anything like it. We could not understand minds that valued revenge more than life itself. The Yithrani fled to the edges of the galaxy. They had not been seen in 200 years. Some said they had found a new home. Others said they had simply faded away, too afraid to ever show themselves again. The final testimony came from Trademaster Galvex of the Mendari Consortium. The Mendari were merchants, not warriors. They believed everything could be bought and sold, including victory. When they decided to conquer Earth, they did not send soldiers. They sent accountants. The Mendari blockaded the solar system. No ships could enter or leave. No trade could occur. They would simply starve humanity into submission. It was clean, efficient, and profitable. The blockade lasted 20 years. We watched them suffer. Galvex recorded. His small eyes blinked rapidly. Their economy collapsed. Their food ran out. They began eating things that should not be eaten. Animals, plants, insects. We heard reports that some had even eaten their own dead. We were certain they would surrender any day. They never did. In those 20 years of starvation, the humans had been building a secret fleet. They hid it in underground shipyards. They powered it with the energy of their own dying sun. They crewed it with volunteers who had watched their families starve. When the blockade finally cracked, the Mendari learned the truth too late. They did not just break through our lines, Golvek said. They hunted us. Every ship, every station, every Mendari who had voted for the blockade, they had kept records. They knew our names, and they did not forget a single one. Krixtal closed the files. His mind was full of images of destruction, of burning worlds and scattered empires, of species that had thought themselves powerful until they made the mistake of hurting humanity. One pattern emerged from every testimony. Humans did not surrender. Humans did not forgive. Their anger did not fade with time. It only grew stronger. And that was what made them the most terrifying force in the universe. The human world appeared through the viewport, like a blue and green jewel floating in darkness. Krixtal stood at the window of his ship and watched it grow larger. His hands trembled against the glass. His mind was still filled with the horrors he had witnessed in the archive. He expected to see a fortress world, a planet covered in weapons and military bases. He expected to see a civilization built entirely for war. He did not expect what he found. His shuttle landed in a city called Geneva. It was beautiful. Trees lined the streets. Flowers bloomed in gardens. Children played in parks, while their parents watched from wooden benches. The buildings were made of glass and stone, designed for beauty rather than defense. There were no soldiers in the streets. There were no weapons pointed at the sky. Krixtal stepped off his shuttle and looked around in confusion. Where were the warriors? Where was the military that had destroyed a dozen empires? Where was the species that made the entire galaxy tremble in fear? A human woman approached him with a smile on her face. She was small compared to him, barely reaching his shoulder. Her skin was dark brown, and her hair was pulled back in braids. She wore simple clothing in bright colors. She did not look dangerous at all. Ambassador Krixtal? She asked. Her voice was warm and friendly. Welcome to Earth. I am Elena Vasquez. I will be your guide during your visit. Krixtal did not know how to respond. He had prepared himself for hostility. He had prepared for suspicion and cold stares. He had not prepared for kindness. Thank you, he managed to say. Your world is not what I expected. Elena laughed softly. Let me guess. You thought you would find a planet full of angry warriors ready to attack at any moment. Krixtal felt his face grow warm with embarrassment. The testimonies I reviewed suggested that we are monsters. Elena shook her head. Come, let me show you who we really are. They walked through the city together. Elena showed him markets where humans sold food and crafts. She showed him museums filled with art and history. She showed him schools where children learned about science and literature and music. Everywhere they went, humans greeted Krixtal with curiosity and interest. They asked about his homeworld. They wanted to know about his family, his culture, his favorite foods. They offered him gifts and invited him to share meals. It was deeply disturbing. These were the same beings who had shattered the Silicoid communion. These laughing, smiling creatures had hunted the Drethax across the galaxy until none remained. These people who painted pictures and sang songs had built ships specifically designed for suicide attacks. How could both things be true? On the third day of his visit, Krixtal finally asked the question that had been burning in his mind. He and Elena were standing in a quiet garden outside the diplomatic building. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Birds sang in the trees. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. It felt like a lie. I have seen the records, Krixtal said. I know what your species has done. I have watched the testimonies of those who attacked you and lived to regret it. You destroyed empires. You broke worlds. You chased your enemies across the galaxy until nothing remained. How can the beings I see around me be the same creatures who did those things? Elena was silent for a long moment. Her smile faded, replaced by something more serious. More sad. Come with me, she said. I want to show you something. She led him to a building he had not noticed before. It was simple and white, with no decorations or symbols. Inside was a single room. The walls were covered from floor to ceiling with names, billions of names, written in tiny letters that stretched as far as Crixtal could see. These are the names of everyone we lost, Elena explained. Her voice was quiet but steady. Every human killed by alien aggression over the past 300 years. 18 million in the Drethax attack. 40 million during the Silicoid terraforming. Hundreds of millions more in the blockades and wars that followed. 40 million. Crixtal stared at the walls. There were so many names. Too many to count. Too many to comprehend. We remember all of them, Elena continued. Every single one. We teach our children their names. We tell stories about their lives. We write songs about the people they loved and the dreams they never achieved. And we made a promise to them. A promise that what happened to them would never happen again. She turned to face Crixtal directly. Her eyes were wet with tears, but her voice was strong. You want to know how we can be both things? How we can be artists and destroyers? It is because of love, Ambassador. We love our families, our friends, our species. We love them with an intensity that your people find difficult to understand. That love makes us kind. It makes us generous. It makes us want to build beautiful things and share them with the universe. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice had grown harder. But when something takes that love away from us, when something kills the people we cherish, that same love transforms. It becomes grief. It becomes rage. It becomes a fire that will not stop burning until the source of our pain has been completely destroyed. Crixtal understood then. The galaxy had been looking at humanity wrong. They thought human anger was a weakness, something that could be used against them. They thought human rage was temporary, something that would fade over time. But human anger was not separate from human love. They were the same thing. Two sides of one coin. The species that would cross the galaxy to save a stranger would also cross the galaxy to avenge one. We do not want war, Elena said. We want to build. We want to explore. We want to make friends and learn from other species. We are not monsters. She looked at the wall of names behind her. But if someone takes from us the people we love, there is nowhere in the universe they can hide. Our anger knows no limits, because our love knows no limits. Crixtal nodded slowly. He finally understood the warning that the galaxy had been whispering for centuries. Do not attack the humans. Not because they were strong, because they loved too much to ever stop fighting. The Grand Council of the Velthari Confederacy gathered in their ancient chamber. Representatives from 100 species filled the circular hall, their bodies and minds as different as the stars they came from. Some floated in liquid tanks. Others perched on mechanical legs. A few existed only as flickering holograms transmitted from distant worlds. They had all come to hear the report of Ambassador Crixtal, the first diplomat to visit Earth and return. Crixtal stood at the center of the chamber. He looked different than when he had left. His posture was straighter. His eyes held a new kind of knowledge. The journey had changed him in ways that even he did not fully understand. We sent you to observe the humans, the chief arbiter said. She was an ancient creature, her body mostly machine now, kept alive by technology older than most civilizations. Tell us what you learned. Are they as dangerous as the testimonies suggest? Crixtal took a deep breath. Yes, he said. They are exactly as dangerous as the testimonies suggest. Perhaps more so. A murmur of fear rippled through the chamber. Representatives shifted nervously in their seats. Some whispered to their neighbors in languages that Crixtal could not understand. Then we must maintain our current policy, the chief arbiter said. We will continue to avoid contact. We will keep them isolated at the edge of the galaxy. We will pray that they never turn their attention toward us. No. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. The chamber fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and perception organ turned toward Crixtal. Did you just disagree with the Council's decision? The Chief Arbiter asked. Her mechanical voice carried a warning. I did, Crixtal replied. Because our current policy is wrong. It is based on fear, and fear has made us blind. We have spent 10,000 years hiding from humanity. It is time we tried something different. He pressed a button on his communicator. Images appeared in the air above him. Pictures of Earth. Pictures of humans, laughing, working, creating. Pictures of children playing in parks and artists painting murals. Pictures of the memorial wall with its billions of names. I have seen what the humans do to their enemies, Crixtal said. But I have also seen what they do for their friends. They protect them with that same fierce intensity. They will sacrifice everything for those they love. Every testimony in the archive speaks of human rage, but none of them speak of human loyalty. None of them speak of human kindness. He looked around the chamber at the gathered representatives. What if we stopped being their potential enemies? What if we became their friends instead? Their capacity for love is just as limitless as their capacity for anger. Imagine what they could be if they turned that power toward protecting the Confederacy instead of destroying those who threatened it. The Chief Arbiter's mechanical face showed no expression. But her voice carried doubt. You are suggesting we invite them to join us? The species that has destroyed more civilizations than any other? I am suggesting we give them a reason not to destroy us. Crixtal stepped forward. Every species that attacked humanity made the same mistake. They saw humans as prey. They thought they could take from them without consequence. But what if we offered instead of taking? What if we shared our knowledge, our resources, our friendship? Humans do not attack those who show them kindness. They defend them. The chamber erupted in argument. Some representatives shouted their support. Others screamed their opposition. The debate raged for hours. In the end, the council voted against Crixtal's proposal. The fear was too strong. The memories of destroyed empires were too fresh. But Crixtal had expected this. After the vote, he returned to the Grand Archive. He walked the same path he had walked months before, past the ancient sections and forgotten corridors, until he reached the room that held the forbidden file. He placed his hand on the recording device and began to speak. I am Ambassador Crixtal of the Morvani people. I have visited Earth. I have walked among humans. I have seen what they truly are, and I am adding my testimony to this file, not as a warning of what to fear, but as a guide for those who come after me. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I have seen the humans at peace. They are artists and dreamers. They are healers and builders. They create music that speaks to the soul and art that captures the beauty of existence. They will share their food with a stranger. They will give their time to help someone in need. They will cross the void to save a life. His voice grew stronger. But I have also read the testimonies of those who attacked them. The Drethax Empire. Gone. The Silicoid Communion. Shattered. The Ytherani Collective. Vanished. The Mendari Consortium. Scattered to the winds. Not one species that made war on humanity has survived. Not one. He looked directly into the recording device. The humans have a saying. Speak softly and carry a big stick. We have heard them speak softly. We have seen them build wonders. We have witnessed their kindness and their creativity. For the sake of your worlds, for the sake of your children and your children's children, do not make them reach for the stick. Crixtal thought of Elena Vasquez. He thought of the memorial wall with its billions of names. He thought of the love that burned in human hearts, love that could warm the universe or burn it to ash. Their anger knows no limits, he said. This is true, but it is true because their love knows no limits. They are two sides of the same fire. Hurt them. and that fire will consume you. Help them, and it will light your way through the darkness. He reached for the controls to end the recording, then stopped. One final thing, he added. Someday, a species wiser than mine will read these words. Someday, someone will have the courage to do what my council would not. They will reach out to humanity. They will offer friendship instead of fear. And on that day, the galaxy will change forever. He thought of the children playing in Earth's parks. He thought of the artists painting murals on city walls. He thought of the volunteers who had given their lives to protect their families. The humans are not monsters. They are not demons. They are simply beings who love with an intensity we cannot match. They are a fire that can warm or burn, depending on how you approach it. He ended the recording. Choose warmth. The words echoed in the empty chamber. Krixtal saved the file and added it to the archive. It would remain there for 10,000 years, waiting for someone brave enough to listen, waiting for someone wise enough to understand. The galaxy continued to spin. Empires rose and fell. Species were born and died. And in a small room at the heart of the oldest archive in existence, a warning waited for all who would listen. Never attack the humans. Their anger knows no limits, because their love knows no limits, and love, when wounded, becomes the fire that burns galaxies.